In the dim corridors of the Palazzo della Signoria, where shadows danced with ambition and whispers carried the weight of empires, Niccolò Machiavelli understood a truth that would echo through centuries: the greatest enemy of achievement lies not in external forces, but in the fragile construct we call the ego. The man who learns to destroy his weak self becomes an unstoppable force, immune to the machinations of others because he has already conquered his greatest opponent, himself. The ego is a peculiar beast, feeding on validation, comfort, and the illusion of safety. It builds elaborate fortresses of pride, constructing identity from achievements, possessions, and the opinions of others. Yet these very fortifications become prisons, trapping the ambitious soul in cycles of defensive thinking and reactive behavior. The ego-driven man spends his days protecting what he believes himself to be, rather than becoming what he could become. Consider the merchant princes of Renaissance Florence, those who rose from nothing to command vast fortunes and influence. They shared a common trait: the willingness to abandon who they had been in service of who they needed to become. They understood that clinging to past identities, comfortable roles, or familiar patterns of thinking would ensure their destruction in an ever-changing world. The successful merchant did not mourn the loss of his simple tradesman's identity when opportunity demanded he become a banker, diplomat, or patron of arts. The weak self manifests in countless forms throughout our daily existence. It appears as the voice that whispers, "But this is not who I am," when faced with necessary action outside our comfort zone. It emerges as the need to be right in every conversation, the compulsion to defend past decisions, or the fear of looking foolish while learning new skills. The weak self demands consistency with previous versions of ourselves, even when such consistency leads to stagnation and failure. In the courts where Machiavelli served, he observed that men of true power had learned to view themselves as clay rather than marble. Clay can be reshaped according to the demands of circumstance, while marble, once carved, remains forever fixed. The prince who insisted on maintaining his generous nature in times requiring ruthlessness would find himself overthrown by those who adapted their character to meet the moment's demands. Flexibility of self, not rigid consistency, marked the difference between the ruler and the ruled. The process of killing the ego requires more than mere recognition of its existence. It demands active cultivation of what Machiavelli termed effectual truth, the practice of seeing reality as it is rather than as we wish it to be or as it flatters our self-image. This means acknowledging our failures without defensiveness, recognizing our limitations without despair, and accepting feedback without the emotional turbulence that comes from wounded pride. When a man learns to separate his identity from his circumstances, he gains the ability to navigate any situation with clarity. The businessmen who survived the great market crashes were those who could abandon failing strategies without attachment, who could pivot from one industry to another without lamenting the loss of their former expertise. They understood that expertise itself could become a trap, leading to overconfidence in familiar approaches even when circumstances demanded innovation. The death of the weak self begins with the recognition that our current identity is merely a collection of habits, beliefs, and responses accumulated through experience. Most of these were formed during periods of lesser understanding and capability. To cling to them as sacred is to voluntarily limit our potential to grow beyond our current circumstances. The man committed to his mission must be willing to sacrifice any aspect of his current self that does not serve his greater purpose. This sacrifice extends beyond mere personality traits to include relationships, environments, and even core beliefs about how the world operates. The focused man learns to evaluate every element of his existence through a single lens. Does this advance my mission or hinder it? Those elements that hinder must be eliminated or transformed, regardless of how comfortable or familiar they may be. The ego's most insidious trap lies in its demand for immediate gratification and external validation. It seeks quick wins that provide emotional satisfaction but often distract from long-term objectives. The man ruled by ego will choose the easy victory that boosts his self-image over the difficult work that builds lasting capability. He will seek applause from crowds rather than results in reality. Machiavelli observed that effective leaders learn to derive their satisfaction from progress toward their goals rather than from the opinions of others. They developed what might be called an internal scorecard, measuring themselves against their own standards and objectives rather than seeking constant validation from external sources. This internal focus liberated them from the exhausting cycle of performing for others and allowed them to direct all their energy toward meaningful action. The transformation from ego-driven to mission-driven thinking requires deliberate practice in discomfort. The weak self seeks comfort and familiarity, while mission accomplishment often demands venturing into unknown territory. By regularly choosing the uncomfortable path when it serves his objectives, a man gradually weakens the ego's hold over his decision-making process. Each instance of choosing mission over comfort builds the muscle of purposeful action. Physical discomfort serves as an excellent training ground for this transformation. The man who can endure cold, hunger, fatigue, or pain without allowing these sensations to derail his focus develops resilience that extends far beyond physical circumstances. He learns that discomfort is temporary and manageable, while the regret of choosing comfort over progress can last a lifetime. Mental discomfort proves equally valuable for ego destruction. This includes the discomfort of admitting ignorance when everyone expects expertise, of remaining silent when the ego demands we speak, of asking for help when pride suggests we should handle everything alone. Each instance of choosing truth over ego protection builds the capacity for clear thinking and effective action. The social discomfort of disappointing others often presents the greatest challenge to ego destruction. The weak self desperately seeks approval and fears rejection, leading to people-pleasing behaviors that dilute focus and dissipate energy. The mission-focused man learns to accept that disappointing some people is inevitable when pursuing meaningful goals. He develops the ability to maintain relationships without sacrificing his objectives, understanding that true respect comes from competence and integrity rather than constant accommodation. Financial discomfort also serves the process of ego destruction. The ego seeks status symbols and external markers of success, often leading to lifestyle inflation that creates financial pressure and reduces freedom of action. The man who can live below his means and delay gratification builds both financial resources and mental strength. He learns that true wealth lies in having options, not in displaying success to others. The practice of voluntary simplicity, choosing less when more is available, directly attacks the ego's need for accumulation and display. This does not mean embracing poverty, but rather developing the discipline to acquire only what serves the mission. Every possession should either generate income, save time, or directly contribute to goal achievement. Everything else becomes a distraction and a burden. Professional discomfort often provides the most direct path to ego destruction. This includes taking on challenges beyond our current skill level, seeking feedback from critics rather than supporters, and accepting roles that require learning new capabilities. The ego prefers to operate in areas of established competence, but mission accomplishment often demands venturing into unfamiliar territory. The focused man learns to view professional failures as data rather than judgments on his worth. Each failure provides information about what works and what doesn't, bringing him closer to effective approaches. This perspective transforms setbacks from sources of shame into tools for improvement, eliminating the emotional turbulence that usually accompanies failure. Intellectual honesty becomes crucial in this transformation. The ego seeks to maintain the illusion of correctness, leading to confirmation bias and defensive reasoning. The mission-focused man actively seeks information that challenges his assumptions, recognizing that being wrong quickly and adjusting course leads to better outcomes than being wrong slowly while protecting his self-image. This intellectual honesty extends to recognizing and acknowledging the superior capabilities of others. The ego sees others' success as a threat to its own status, leading to jealousy and competitive thinking that wastes energy and creates enemies. The man focused on his mission sees others' capabilities as resources to be leveraged or skills to be learned, transforming potential competitors into allies or teachers. The destruction of the weak self also requires developing immunity to both praise and criticism. The ego swells with praise and deflates with criticism, creating emotional instability that interferes with clear thinking. The focused man learns to extract useful information from both praise and criticism while remaining emotionally unaffected by either. He understands that others' opinions reflect their own perspectives and interests more than objective truth about his abilities or character. This emotional stability allows for better decision-making because choices are made based on likely outcomes rather than emotional reactions. The man who can receive harsh criticism without becoming defensive can learn from it, while the man who remains unmoved by flattery cannot be manipulated through his vanity. The process of ego destruction ultimately leads to what Machiavelli recognized as true freedom, freedom from the need to maintain any particular image or identity. This freedom allows for complete flexibility in choosing roles, strategies, and behaviors based solely on what will advance the mission. The man who has killed his weak self can become whatever the situation demands, without internal conflict or identity crisis. This transformation does not eliminate personality or individual preferences, but rather subordinates them to conscious choice rather than unconscious habit. The mission-focused man may still have preferences, but he is not enslaved by them. He can act against his natural inclinations when doing so serves his greater purpose, and he can change his approach without experiencing psychological distress. The death of the weak self proves to be not a loss but a liberation. By releasing attachment to limiting self-concepts, a man gains access to his full potential. He becomes like water, able to take any shape required by circumstances while maintaining his essential nature, the unwavering commitment to his mission. In this state, he becomes truly unstoppable, not because external obstacles cease to exist, but because he has eliminated the internal obstacles that prevented him from overcoming them. Part 2, The Architecture of Unshakable Focus. In the marble halls where power was forged and lost, Machiavelli witnessed the rise and fall of countless ambitious men. Those who achieved lasting success shared a common trait: they had constructed their lives like fortresses, with every element designed to support and protect their central mission. They understood that focus is not merely a mental state but an architectural achievement, requiring the deliberate design of environment, habits, and systems that make distraction impossible and progress inevitable. The focused man recognizes that willpower alone cannot sustain long-term achievement. Willpower is a finite resource, depleted by daily decisions and emotional stress. Instead of relying on this unreliable force, he builds external structures that make the right choices automatic and the wrong choices difficult or impossible. Like the engineer who channels a river's flow through carefully placed barriers and channels, the mission-driven man shapes his environment to channel his energy toward his objectives. Physical environment serves as the foundation of this architectural approach to focus. The space where a man works and lives either supports his mission or undermines it through constant distractions and temptations. The effective leader removes all elements from his environment that do not directly contribute to his goals. This extends beyond mere organization to include the strategic placement of tools, resources, and reminders that reinforce productive behavior. The man building unshakable focus designs his physical space like a laboratory for achievement. Every object within his environment should either facilitate productive work or actively support his well-being and energy levels. Distracting elements, unnecessary decorations, entertainment devices not serving a specific purpose, comfortable furniture that encourages laziness must be eliminated or relocated outside his primary work areas. Visual cues become powerful tools for maintaining focus. The strategic placement of mission reminders, progress tracking systems, and inspiring images keeps objectives constantly in mind without requiring conscious effort to remember them. The human brain responds powerfully to visual stimuli, and the focused man leverages this tendency by surrounding himself with imagery that reinforces his commitment rather than undermining it. Digital environment requires even more careful curation than physical space. The modern man faces an unprecedented assault on his attention from devices designed by teams of engineers and psychologists specifically to capture and monetize human focus. Social media platforms, news websites, and entertainment services employ sophisticated algorithms that make random content feel personally relevant and urgent. The mission-focused man treats his digital devices like dangerous tools that require careful handling. He configures them to serve his objectives rather than corporate advertising interests. This means aggressive filtering of notifications, strategic use of blocking software, and the creation of digital environments optimized for deep work rather than passive consumption. Email and messaging systems receive particular attention in this digital architecture. The ego-driven man feels compelled to respond immediately to every message, treating each notification as an urgent priority. The focused man recognizes that most communication is neither urgent nor important, and he processes messages in batches at predetermined times rather than allowing them to interrupt his primary work. Information consumption becomes a strategic rather than recreational activity. The unfocused man consumes information for entertainment, emotional stimulation, or the illusion of staying informed. The mission-driven man treats information like any other resource, consuming only what directly advances his understanding or capability. This means choosing sources based on their relevance to his objectives rather than their entertainment value or social acceptance. The practice of information fasting, deliberately avoiding news, social media, and other information sources for extended periods, builds the mental muscle of sustained attention. Most information consumed daily has no practical impact on the consumer's life or decisions, yet it creates the illusion of productivity while actually depleting mental energy and creating anxiety about events beyond one's control. Time architecture proves equally crucial to maintaining unshakable focus. The unfocused man allows his schedule to be determined by the demands and requests of others, constantly reacting to external pressures rather than following a predetermined plan. The mission-driven man designs his schedule like a military campaign, with specific objectives for each time period and predetermined responses to common interruptions. Energy management supersedes time management in importance. The human brain operates at different levels of capability throughout the day, with most people experiencing peak cognitive performance during specific hours that vary based on individual biology and habits. The focused man identifies these peak periods and protects them for his most important work, scheduling routine tasks and meetings during lower energy times. Physical energy directly impacts mental focus, making health and fitness integral components of the focus architecture. The man who neglects his physical condition inevitably suffers reduced cognitive capability, emotional instability, and decreased resilience under pressure. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep are not lifestyle choices but professional tools that directly impact performance. Sleep optimization receives particular attention because sleep quality affects every aspect of cognitive function. The focused man treats sleep like any other performance variable, maintaining consistent sleep and wake times, controlling light exposure, optimizing room temperature, and eliminating substances that interfere with sleep quality. He recognizes that sacrificing sleep for extra work hours typically reduces overall productivity rather than increasing it. Nutrition becomes a strategic consideration rather than a source of pleasure or comfort. The ego-driven man uses food for emotional regulation, eating for stress relief, boredom, or social reasons. The mission-focused man views nutrition as fuel for cognitive performance, choosing foods based on their impact on mental clarity, energy levels, and long-term health rather than immediate gratification. Exercise serves multiple purposes in the architecture of focus. Beyond its obvious health benefits, regular physical activity improves cognitive function, emotional regulation, and stress resilience. The man who maintains physical fitness builds confidence and discipline that transfers to all other areas of life. Physical challenges also provide opportunities to practice discomfort tolerance and mental toughness in controlled environments. Social environment requires careful curation because human beings are profoundly influenced by the people around them. The focused man recognizes that he will inevitably absorb the attitudes, habits, and thinking patterns of those he spends time with regularly. This makes social relationships strategic choices rather than random occurrences or obligations based on history or convenience. The man building unshakable focus evaluates every relationship through the lens of mutual advancement. This does not mean using people, but rather ensuring that relationships are based on shared growth and support rather than emotional dependency or habitual comfort. Relationships that consistently drain energy without providing value or growth must be modified or eliminated, regardless of their historical importance. Mentorship relationships become particularly valuable because they provide access to proven strategies and help avoid common mistakes. The focused man actively seeks guidance from those who have achieved what he seeks to achieve, understanding that learning from others' experience accelerates progress more effectively than learning through trial and error alone. Peer relationships with others pursuing similar objectives create accountability and motivation that individual effort cannot match. The man who surrounds himself with others committed to excellence finds that high performance becomes normal rather than exceptional. These relationships provide both support during difficulties and challenge to prevent complacency. The elimination of toxic relationships proves as important as the cultivation of beneficial ones. Toxic relationships include those characterized by drama, negativity, manipulation, or constant demands for emotional energy without reciprocal value. The ego often maintains these relationships out of guilt, habit, or fear of conflict, but the mission-focused man recognizes that protecting his energy requires difficult decisions about who deserves access to his time and attention. Financial architecture supports focus by eliminating money-related stress and creating freedom to pursue long-term objectives. The man concerned with immediate financial survival cannot focus on building long-term capability or pursuing ambitious goals. By living below his means, building emergency reserves, and creating multiple income streams, he gains the freedom to make decisions based on strategic value rather than immediate financial pressure. Investment in personal development becomes a central component of financial planning. The focused man treats education, training, and skill development as investments rather than expenses, understanding that capability building provides the highest return on investment over time. This includes formal education, coaching, books, seminars, and any other resources that build knowledge and skills relevant to his mission. Automation and systematization eliminate routine decisions that would otherwise consume mental energy. The mission-focused man creates systems for handling recurring tasks, decisions, and situations so that his cognitive resources remain available for important work. This includes everything from automated bill payments to standardized workflows for common business processes. The practice of batching similar activities reduces the mental energy lost to context switching. Rather than checking email throughout the day, the focused man processes all communication during specific time blocks. Rather than making purchasing decisions as needs arise, he researches and purchases items in plan sessions. This approach minimizes the cognitive overhead of constantly shifting between different types of thinking. Habit formation becomes a powerful tool for reducing decision fatigue and ensuring consistent progress. The man who has established strong habits no longer needs to decide whether to exercise, what to eat for breakfast, or when to begin his important work. These decisions are predetermined, freeing mental energy for more complex challenges. The architecture of focus extends to learning systems that ensure continuous improvement without overwhelming current capacity. The focused man establishes regular practices for acquiring new knowledge and skills relevant to his mission, but does so in ways that complement rather than compete with his primary work. This might include podcast listening during commute time, reading during specific periods, or skill practice during designated slots. Documentation and review systems ensure that progress is measured and lessons are captured. The man building unshakable focus maintains records of what works and what doesn't, allowing him to refine his approaches based on actual results rather than assumptions. Regular review sessions help identify patterns, problems, and opportunities for improvement. Contingency planning prepares for common obstacles and distractions before they occur. The focused man anticipates the challenges he is likely to face and develops predetermined responses rather than hoping willpower will carry him through difficult moments. This includes plans for handling illness, family emergencies, financial setbacks, and other disruptions that might derail progress. The ultimate goal of this architectural approach is to create what might be called automatic excellence, a life structure that makes productive choices the path of least resistance while making destructive choices difficult and uncomfortable. When the environment, habits, systems, and relationships all support the mission, maintaining focus becomes easier than losing it. This approach transforms the challenge of achievement from a constant battle requiring heroic effort into a systematic process that builds momentum over time. Like a well-designed machine, each component supports the others, creating synergistic effects that multiply individual efforts. The man who builds such systems discovers that extraordinary results become the natural outcome of ordinary days, and his mission advances with the inevitability of a natural force. Part 3, The Alchemy of Obstacle Transformation. In the flickering candlelight of his study, Machiavelli penned observations that would challenge comfortable assumptions about power and achievement for centuries to come. Among his most profound insights was the recognition that great men do not merely overcome obstacles, they transform opposition into advantage, turning every barrier into a building block for greater strength. The man who has killed his ego and built unshakable focus discovers that obstacles become his most valuable teachers and sources of power. The conventional mind sees obstacles as problems to be avoided or endured. The mission-focused man recognizes obstacles as opportunities disguised as difficulties. This fundamental shift in perspective transforms the entire experience of pursuing ambitious goals from a series of unfortunate interruptions to a continuous education in capability building. Every challenge becomes a chance to develop new skills, test existing strategies, and build the resilience necessary for greater achievements. Opposition often reveals weaknesses that would otherwise remain hidden until more critical moments. The business leader who encounters early criticism of his strategy gains the opportunity to refine his approach before committing substantial resources. The entrepreneur who faces initial rejections from investors learns to improve his presentation and strengthen his business model. Without these early obstacles, such individuals might proceed with flawed strategies until failure becomes inevitable and expensive. The alchemy of obstacle transformation begins with reframing adversity as feedback rather than punishment. The ego interprets difficulties as evidence of unfairness, bad luck, or personal inadequacy. The mission-focused man treats difficulties as information about what adjustments are needed in his approach. This reframing eliminates the emotional turbulence that typically accompanies setbacks, allowing for clear analysis and rapid adaptation. Resistance from others often indicates that one's efforts are significant enough to threaten existing power structures or challenge conventional thinking. The reformer who faces no opposition is probably pursuing changes too small to matter. The entrepreneur who encounters no competitive response may have entered a market too insignificant to sustain a meaningful business. Strong opposition frequently signals that one is pursuing objectives worth achieving. Financial obstacles force creativity and efficiency that prosperity cannot teach. The entrepreneur operating with limited resources must find innovative solutions, negotiate better deals, and eliminate waste in ways that would never occur to someone with abundant funding. Many successful businesses were forged in conditions of scarcity that forced their founders to develop capabilities and strategies they would not have discovered in more comfortable circumstances. Technical obstacles drive innovation and problem-solving skills that become valuable in unexpected ways. The software developer who cannot use existing tools learns to create new ones. The manufacturer facing supply chain disruptions develops alternative sources and processes that provide competitive advantages. The researcher whose standard methods fail discovers new approaches that advance entire fields of knowledge. Personal obstacles build character traits that serve as foundations for future achievements. The man who overcomes social anxiety develops communication skills and confidence that benefit him in negotiations, leadership, and relationship building. The individual who conquers procrastination builds discipline that accelerates progress in all areas of life. The person who defeats addiction gains insights into human nature and self-control that provide advantages in understanding and motivating others. Health challenges often force lifestyle changes that ultimately improve overall quality of life. The executive who suffers a heart attack may discover that regular exercise and better nutrition not only improve his health but also increase his energy, mental clarity, and emotional stability. The individual facing mental health challenges who seeks therapy may develop emotional intelligence and self-awareness that enhance all his relationships and decisions. Professional setbacks create opportunities to reassess goals, strategies, and career directions. The manager who loses his job may discover entrepreneurial opportunities he would never have considered while employed. The professional whose industry becomes obsolete may develop new skills that lead to more fulfilling and lucrative work. The employee who faces discrimination may start his own business and achieve greater success than would have been possible in traditional employment. The process of transforming obstacles requires active engagement rather than passive endurance. The mission-focused man does not simply survive difficulties but studies them, extracting every possible lesson and advantage. This means analyzing what went wrong, identifying what could be done differently, recognizing what capabilities need development, and understanding what assumptions need adjustment. Documentation of obstacles and responses creates a valuable database for future decision-making. The entrepreneur who maintains detailed records of challenges faced and solutions attempted builds institutional knowledge that becomes increasingly valuable as his business grows. The professional who tracks patterns in workplace difficulties may identify systemic issues that, once addressed, dramatically improve his effectiveness and satisfaction. Sharing obstacle experiences with others can transform personal struggles into valuable teaching opportunities. The leader who openly discusses his failures and the lessons learned builds credibility and trust with his team while helping them avoid similar mistakes. The mentor who shares his obstacle navigation strategies provides value to protégés while reinforcing his own learning through teaching. The practice of obstacle inoculation involves deliberately seeking smaller challenges to build capability for larger ones. The martial artist practices against increasingly skilled opponents to prepare for real confrontations. The public speaker seeks progressively larger and more challenging audiences to build confidence and skill. The businessman takes on projects with graduated levels of risk to develop judgment and resilience. Physical challenges serve as particularly effective training for mental obstacle transformation. The athlete who learns to push through fatigue and discomfort develops mental toughness that transfers to other areas of life. The mountaineer who faces fear and uncertainty while climbing builds decision-making skills under pressure. The martial artist who accepts defeat as learning experiences develops emotional resilience and strategic thinking. Intellectual challenges force the development of learning and problem-solving capabilities that benefit all future endeavors. The student who struggles with advanced mathematics develops logical thinking skills. The researcher who faces complex problems builds systematic analysis capabilities. The writer who wrestles with difficult concepts develops communication and clarity skills. Social challenges build emotional intelligence and relationship management capabilities that become increasingly valuable as one's responsibilities and influence grow. The individual who learns to handle conflict constructively develops leadership skills. The person who overcomes social rejection builds resilience and empathy. The leader who manages difficult team members develops coaching and motivation capabilities. Financial challenges teach resource management and value creation skills that serve as foundations for long-term wealth building. The person who learns to live well on a limited budget develops appreciation for value and efficiency. The entrepreneur who bootstraps a business learns to maximize return on investment and minimize waste. The individual who recovers from financial setbacks develops risk management and recovery strategies. The transformation of obstacles requires distinguishing between changeable and unchangeable circumstances. The mission-focused man invests his energy in responding to what he can control while accepting what he cannot change. This prevents the waste of energy on futile resistance while maximizing effective action in areas where progress is possible. Timing plays a crucial role in obstacle transformation. Some barriers require immediate action, while others are better circumnavented or delayed until conditions become more favorable. The strategic mind evaluates not just whether an obstacle can be overcome, but when and how to engage with it for maximum advantage. Alliance building often provides the key to transforming obstacles that cannot be overcome through individual effort. The entrepreneur facing regulatory barriers may partner with established companies that have compliance capabilities. The professional seeking to enter a new industry may collaborate with insiders who provide knowledge and connections. The reformer pushing for social change may build coalitions with groups that share related interests. Technology frequently offers new approaches to old obstacles. The small business owner who cannot afford traditional advertising may use social media and content marketing to reach customers cost-effectively. The researcher who cannot access expensive laboratory equipment may use computer simulations or collaborate with institutions that have necessary resources. The student who cannot afford traditional education may leverage online courses and alternative credentialing systems. Innovation often emerges from the pressure of obstacles that make conventional approaches impossible or inadequate. The musician who cannot afford professional recording equipment may develop unique sounds using available tools. The entrepreneur who cannot compete on price may innovate in service, quality, or customer experience. The writer who faces publication rejections may develop new distribution methods or genres. The compound effect of obstacle transformation creates exponential advantages over time. Each successfully navigated challenge builds capabilities that make future obstacles easier to handle. The individual who has overcome financial difficulties, health challenges, relationship problems, and professional setbacks has developed a toolkit of strategies and a confidence based on proven ability rather than untested theory. Mastery of obstacle transformation ultimately leads to what might be called anti-fragility, the quality of becoming stronger from stress rather than merely surviving it. The man who has developed this capability actively seeks challenges because he knows they will increase his capabilities. He becomes like a muscle that grows stronger from resistance, or a fire that spreads faster in wind. This transformation from seeing obstacles as problems to seeing them as opportunities represents perhaps the most fundamental shift in mindset required for extraordinary achievement. The man who has made this shift discovers that the very forces that stop most people become the sources of his greatest advantages. He learns to welcome opposition, embrace difficulties, and thrive in uncertainty because he understands that these are the conditions that forge exceptional capability and unstoppable momentum. In the end, the man who has killed his ego, built unshakable focus, and learned to transform obstacles becomes truly invincible not because he faces no challenges, but because every challenge makes him stronger. He has learned the ultimate lesson that Machiavelli observed in the courts of power, that those who can adapt and grow stronger from adversity become forces of nature that cannot be permanently stopped by any external opposition. They have become masters of their own destiny through mastery of their responses to whatever destiny presents.